Good evening, everyone. On behalf of all of us at JNF UK, I would like to welcome you and thank you for joining us this evening to a special episode in our Voices from Israel series. I'm Dana Zohar from JNF UK, and tonight I'm honored to be the mediator and interviewer of leading security expert, Major General Uzi Dayan. For many years, JNF UK's work has been focused on Israel's peripheries, making these areas stronger and more resilient, resulting in an overall more prosperous and sustainable Israel. Our projects in the north and south of Israel have played a critical role in supporting communities by providing the best available education and healthcare, while at the same time investing in infrastructure, social, and environmental initiatives. JNF UK is deeply integrated into the lives of southern and northern communities, enabling us to offer quick and efficient help after the tragedies of October 7. While much attention is focused on the conflict with Hamas in Gaza, I believe it is time to also turn our attention to the Northern Front. Consequently, we will aim to address this issue in our discussion this evening. Before introducing our exceptional speaker, please note the Q&A chat box located at the bottom of your screen, where you can submit questions at any time during our discussion. Depending on the time left at the end of our talk, we will try to answer as many questions as possible. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce Major General Reserve Uzi Dayan. Dayan served for 17 years in the elite commander unit, Sayeret Matkal, eventually becoming its commander. He also served as the head of Central Command and Deputy Chief of Staff. Among his many roles, Dayan was chairman of Israel's National Security Council and National Security Advisor to both prime ministers, Barak and Sharon. Dayan was a member of the Knesset, and since 2004, he is the chairman of Green Horizon, a leading youth organization. Dayan holds a BSc degree in mathematics and physics from the Hebrew University, an MSc in operations research from Stanford University. He is married to Professor Tamar Dayan, and together they have 3 children. Uzi, thank you for joining us tonight. So could you please begin by telling us about yourself and your background?
Well, thank you very much, Dana. תודה רבה. You did a great job. So I just said to add that I'm very Israeli. I know that you will never tell it by my accent, but you can take my word to it and for it, and you heard my bio. I was born in Israel. My parents were born in Israel. My father was killed in the Independence War in 48 when I was 100 days old. And I grew up in the Valley of Israel. And you heard my bio. I just want to add that, well, I actually participated in all the wars from 67, the Six-Day War and on, and the Attrition War, and the Yom Kippur War, and wars in Lebanon, and the wars between the wars, as they call it we call it in Israel. And was wounded 3 times, and I'm fine. And I also served during this service. I always was the head of the security committee of all the negotiations of Israel with the Jordanians, with the Syrians, with the Palestinians, and with the others. So what I want to say that I not only very Israeli, but I know 1 or 2 things about national security in our region. I was also in the capacity of being the national security advisor in charge of the strategic relations with Washington and other countries. So let's begin.
Sure. Shall we? Could you provide a brief explanation of what went wrong and how we reached the point that made the events of October 7 possible?
Yeah, it's we are not only very surprised, we were actually shocked in October the 7th from the strategic point of view, or in the strategic level, our conception failed. The conception, what we call the conception, mean that we thought that we can deter, or some of us thought that we can deter the Hamas organization, and we can, in a way, I don't have a softer way to say, where to say it, but to bribe them, which means to give them enough money and to let them work in Israel, tens of thousands of workers from Gaza, etc. And they will take care of Gaza, and they will have the responsibility to take care of their citizens. And this actually conception failed all the way. As I will mention later, that it's not that everybody thought this way, but actually it passed from generation to generation in the last, I don't know, 10, 15 years. On the operative level, our defense was a failure. And this is professionally, I mean, not enough force. It was holiday, so there was a lot of soldiers were letting to go home. In the same time, the army, the IDF relied too much on technology, and they didn't remember that technology is not enough. You need actually fighters, combatants there. And actually, I don't want to say that it was a good event, but if our defense was better, it won't arrive to such a situation, such a level of hundreds of more than 1,500 people were killed. And unlike for example, the Yom Kippur War, not all of them, but most of them, a lot of them were citizens. And actually, this is our job. I mean, the IDF need to give security to the people. Also, many Israelis were kidnapped. Mm-hmm. And you can't overestimate the impact of that on the Israeli society. And this is because the Israelis, they don't think it's enough to get security. They need sense of security. It has to do with the Holocaust and other events, but especially from the Holocaust, and almost everybody in the Gaza envelope, for example, said we felt like in the Holocaust, and most of these people were never in the Holocaust, of course, but the very elder people were. So that was the kidnap and the hostages still have today a very major impact. And I want just to add one more thing. People like me, for example, 15 years ago said, Hamas is not a part of any solution, it's the problem. And once we enter Gaza, or we react to anything, we have to go and eliminate them and to kill them all. And the people said to me, are you crazy? you are very experienced. Do you think that the Israeli public opinion will put up with hundreds of funerals now in Israel, especially that our defense against terrorism, including rockets, are pretty good. So the price of blood in Israel as a democratic, lawful country, no one can go to a war in Israel unless there is the support of the Israeli public opinion. And what happens actually in one day is that the Israeli public opinion change, and now, even now, the Israelis says we have to win, and we know that it's going to cost us. You know it's very precious, but we are ready to do it.
So, okay, if I would like to relate to this analysis, do you believe, are there any measures being created in Israel to deter terror in the future?
And that's a major question in Israel and actually in other places. The point, it goes that way. First of all, terrorism is not an existential threat.
Mhm.
Causes a lot of problem. It kills people, it murders people, etc. There are hostages, but it doesn't actually threat the existence of the state in Israel. We are much more powerful than any terror organization. In the same time, terror is a strategic threat. By saying strategic threat, I mean that if you don't fight terrorism effectively, you leave the key to any policy, to any improvement, to anything that you want to achieve, you leave the key to it in the hands of some terrorists, and they will derail it once they want, and they do want to derail it. So you have to fight terrorism effectively. Now, what do I mean by saying effectively? It began 15 years ago that I said that in Israel, the only way to deter terrorism is to threat its own existence. You can't deter terrorism by saying, I will kill people, I will kill you, many of you, I will destroy your infrastructure, for example, the infrastructure in Lebanon. You have to threat the own existence of the terror organization. And then people go and said to me, and are saying even today, what do you mean by destroy or eliminate terrorism? It's an idea. It's in the mind of the people. 80% of the people in Gaza actually support the Hamas. And they say, you can't just eliminate. What do you mean by win? By winning? There is no way to do it. And what I'm saying is there is a way to do it. In the same way, we have to understand the asymmetry here. We, in order to win, need, from the point of view of our people, to eliminate this organization, like the Bader Meinhof, for example, or I don't know, the Red Brigades in Italy. There are other, the Red Japanese Army, there are other examples. They, the terrorists, in order to win, what do they have to do? Only to survive. It's enough for them to survive and launch another rocket, etc. And from our people point of view, this is not security. We don't feel secure. So what I'm saying is that we need today to show that there is a way to win. And if you ask me, what do you mean by win? I'll give you the best example to you in UK. The way to win a battle, a war against terrorism is Germany 45. Germany 1945, which means to kill the leadership, to destroy most of the fighters, the illegal combatants, to taking apart the organization, I mean money, education, food, etc., everything that actually they control. And by doing that, and of course, in our example, it's to kick out the organization out of his territory, as we did to the PLO in Lebanon, and now it's the Hamas in Gaza. If you do so, some people will remain in the same way that they are Nazis today. But if they don't have organization, they don't have a state, they don't have army, etc., they can, of course, do a lot of harm, but they can't win it. They can't actually be. This is what I mean by winning, by having a victory. I'm talking about a military operational victory. We'll talk about history later. And this is the way to do it, including in Gaza. It has its price, but if you want to get rid of terrorism, there is no other way.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. Uzi, considering Israel's previous wars, are there unique characteristics for Israel's current war?
Well, yeah, let's do it very shortly. First of all, I mentioned before that terrorism today use a technology that wasn't before. I mean rockets, unmanned UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles, etc., and different ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and other. So it's a kind of a terror, how should I call it in English, standoff terrorism. You don't have to cross the border, you don't have to arrive to places, you don't have to blow up trains or buses, etc. You can do it with a standoff, which means from behind the lines. Israel is a very small country, which means that this kind of terrorism actually cover the whole country. And in this small country, we have, first of all, 5 different fronts. One in the south, especially Gaza Strip and Hamas. But you have always to keep an open eye about Egypt because they help the Hamas to be stronger. In the same time, we have one in the north that we want to focus today. It's Lebanon, but it's also from Syria. It's the Hezbollah, but not only the Hezbollah. And in the same time, there is one in Judah, Samaria, and the Jordan Valley, what we call the West Bank, which means there are, for example, Palestinian police, Palestinian authority there, and they are actually helping terrorism and participating in terrorism a lot of times. If you ask, there are about 40,000 Palestinians, policemen that have rifles, and it can be turned immediately against first of all, the Israeli settlers in the West Bank. So this is another front. And finally, there is one, the depth front, which led by Iran, but also as we can see the Houthis in Yemen and some militias in Iraq and other places. And let's not forget the home front command in Israel. We get got an early warning now in Tel Aviv, for example. So there are 5 different fronts, and they have relation, they influence each other, but especially they have each of them has its characteristics and so. And let's not forget 3, let's call it arenas. Mm-hmm. The international one. It's not only what's going on in London or Paris and other places, but in Hague, for example, the criminal and other courts in Hague, and what it has its effect on the UN. So I call it all international arena, and I didn't mention Washington because for Israel, Washington, it's a special international arena, a very important one. As we can see, there is not a dull moment even there politically. And finally, there is the Israeli society, a kind of an inner home front arena with Israelis with different views, etc. When I was the national security advisor, I was often asked, what is the Israeli most important, let's call it strategic asset? And usually people wanted to talk about, I don't know, Merkava number 7 or the F-35, or even to talk about what we don't talk about, etc. And I said, no, the Israeli most important strategic asset is the cohesion of the Israeli society and the relation between Israel and the Jewish and the Israeli communities, in different places. So 5 fronts, 3 arenas, enough time for a decade.
A highly complex situation. But let me just focus on the northern front now, because in a way, Hezbollah has already succeeded. Without even starting a full-scale war, 60,000 Israelis have been evacuated from the north and have been away from their homes for more than 9 months. Furthermore, Hezbollah is continuously launching rockets over Israel, causing casualties, severe infrastructure damage, and widespread fires. So altogether, the tension in the northern front is escalating, though it is estimated that neither Hezbollah, Iran, nor Israel are interested in an all-out war. So could you provide some insights into where this situation might be heading?
Okay, this is, as you said, pretty complicated. By the way, if you want to know if somebody is Israeli, to recognize an Israeli, you ask him a question, and if one of the first 2 sentences is, it's very complicated, is Israel. Israelis tend to complicate, but the situation is actually complicated enough. So first of all, Israel made a big mistake by evacuating all the northern, not all, but some of the pretty many Israelis along the border with Lebanon. By the way, all the communities that didn't left there, they are not under fire. The fire, the Hezbollah fire is on the evacuated places, communities, etc. For example, in the Golan Heights, nobody left. All the Druze stayed. All the Arabs near the border stayed. And I think, and I said it from the first day, that it was a big mistake. And actually, it was because of the panic and from what happened in the south, because there wasn't an attack immediately. Later on, they continue an attack, the Hezbollah. Now, Hezbollah is stronger than the Hamas, but it's weaker in the same time. Actually, both of them are working as an outpost of Iran, one in the south and another in the north. The Hezbollah are Shiites, the Hamas are not, or Sunnis. And why I'm saying that they are stronger, they have more rockets, they have more troops, they have more experience because they fought in Syria when all the international arena said nothing about it, including Hague, etc. They were fighting and murdered people in Syria for years. Actually, you know some of them because some of them are just, by the way, immigrated to Europe. And I'm talking about millions. There are more than 8 million Syrians that will never return to their home. Some of them are in Syria, some of them in Jordan, some of them in Europe, etc. Now, why they are, I said that they are also weak in the same time. First of all, because they are Shiite. So they are the strongest people in or body organization in Lebanon, but many of the Lebanese really hate them. Some of them because they are Christian and Maronites and etc. And some of them just because they understand that they ruin Lebanon. In the same time, I think that Iran might think twice before losing their second outpost, because they understood they already lost the outpost in the southern part, I mean in Gaza. And also in Lebanon, it's not the people, they don't like it in many places. And as long as Hezbollah sell to the Lebanese, we defend you, we are the guardians of the country, of the borders, etc. It's one thing, but once we left Lebanon, and once we said, okay, let's live in peace and we establish a border that was actually agreed even by the UN. So there is a catch here. And the catch here is, who is afraid from a war in the northern part of Israel? First of all, the United States of America. Why so? Because they afraid very much from enlarging the war, and what we call regional war will become global war from their point of view. By saying global, I mean China, Russia, and of course, Iran itself. So we say, okay, let's do what needed. I will explain it in a minute, in Lebanon, and let's avoid a regional war. The Americans says, okay, so what would we need? We need to have a good agreement. A good agreement. Well, there might be a good agreement. There was a 1701. There was an agreement, maritime agreement by the United States. And I'm asking a very simple question. I prefer an agreement too, okay? But who is the person, who is the other side that will sign on that agreement? Is it going to be what, Hezbollah? Is it going to be Amal in Lebanon? Is it going to be the non-existent government in Lebanon? And I'm saying now, I say my own opinion. It's the only organization that we can sign a good agreement with is the IDF. What do I mean? The solution is, first of all, to kick the Hezbollah on the other side of the Litani and establish what the Americans called death zone. This is the formal name of a strip between South Korea and North Korea. I'm talking about 10 kilometers. This is more or less the range of the most modern anti-tank missiles, and we have to deploy our forces because in Lebanon, some of the Israeli settlements are 20 meters from the fence of the border. And we have to give them, to secure them. So what we need is to deploy the IDF in some places, even a little bit on the other side of this unholy line. And then we can continue and work on the depths and Beirut, etc. Beirut is more flammable than Hudaydah, actually. But we actually hold our fire in a way. Why? Because we want to achieve an understanding with Washington. And today it's not an easy a task. So what I'm saying, after doing that, I'm ready to sign an agreement because I know that the organization that will assure me that this agreement will be kept will be the IDF.
Okay, so continuing this issue, now correct me if I'm wrong, but the essence of the conflict with Hezbollah lies not in territorial dispute, but in ideology. Hezbollah acts, as you mentioned, as a proxy of Iran, receiving funding, technology, and weapons. However, Hassan Nasrallah, the Secretary General of Hezbollah, has his own considerations. A full-scale war with Israel would devastate Lebanon. So how independent is Nasrallah's decision to escalate the situation, or is he influenced significantly by Iran?
Well, the key word is Iran. And Iran, you know, that the distance between Israel and Iran is like the distance between us and Yemen. It's about almost 1,800 kilometers. Now, what is the problem with Iran? I met many Iranians. I know this, the one who wrote the speeches of Ahmadinejad. I know the deputy commander of the Revolutionary Guards in Iran. I know many people, many Iranians. And first of all, what the Iranians are telling you, if you meet, first thing, we are not Arabs. Okay, I didn't think that you are Arabs. No, they mention it again and again. We are not Arabs. So I asked them, what's the problem? We don't have a border with you. We don't have a basic conflict of interest. Why you are such an enemy of us? You are not enemy and us unless you attack us. And why you try to achieve, to get a nuclear capability. And you know what the Iranians are saying? It's not that important what they are saying. The idea, they are very shrewd here. What they are saying, they want the hegemony in the Middle East. Actually, against many of the Arabs, that, and in order to protect what they think, to protect the Shia, which is a minority in the Arab world. And so where they go and make all kind of agreements with proxies, outposts, as I said, in Iraq, in Yemen, in Gaza, in Lebanon, etc. And they make the work for them to exporting the Iranian. If you tell Iran that you are a terror state, they are very offended. They say, no, we export our revolutionary, the Shiite revolution, and which is not better, by the way. And this is the point, and they take advantage very much of the weakness of the West. Nobody, including Trump, actually threat Iran directly. they kind to bribe the Iran in the same way that we try to bribe the Hamas. Which mean we'll give you to export, it's okay that you have relations with China, etc., etc. And then, for example, they didn't attack the Houthis in Yemen, and we had to do it with our own forces. I want to emphasize here that there is a very big threat if Iran will achieve nuclear capability. All the problems in the Middle East will stay the same. No, even one problem will be solved. In top of everything, there will be a mega problem, which is called nuclear Iran. Imagine yourself that today Iran was nuclear. What was the influence and what's going on not only in the Middle East and other countries in the Middle East, especially Sunni countries like Egypt, like Saudi Arabia, will go for what is called an equalizer. They will go for a nuclear capability in order to threat Iran to defend themselves. So it's a mess.
It's going to be a game changer, basically.
And so what can be done? The United States, it's a key country, but also, for example, Great Britain, UK. You have F-15 in Jordan, in Mafraq, if you don't know. You have forces here in the Middle East, and CENTCOM, etc. Now, Iran is not that strong as we think. For example, 60% of the Iranian export is crude oil, 60%. And they can't refine oil products for themselves. Two, the economy. Three, the society is a very mixed and a pretty weak one. For example, I once said to the American that I give them some example. For example, the Iran Navy. Not many people know, but Iran has two navies. Why? One of the Iranian kingdom, Iranian state, and the other one of this Revolutionary Guards. They have their own navy, and this navy can be destroyed in 48 hours. If the United States want to do it, they have their carriers, etc. It's something which they can do without boots on the ground in Iran. But what I'm saying is, you don't need even to go operational. You can, for example, have an oil embargo on Iran, and two financial sanctions on the banks, on the boats, on ports, etc., on everything. And Iran is not strong economically. Actually, I checked today. You know how many reals? It's called real, the currency in Iran. In $1, more than 42,000, which it's unbelievable. For example, Israeli check the $1 in Israel, it's 3.6 shekels, new shekels. So there is a way to do it if the West will take it seriously and understand that it can change the whole delicate, so tangible balance in the world. If it won't work, and by the way, there is a middle coalition in the Middle East that will go very much for a kind of a treaty, even informal treaty, like Saudi Arabia, like Egypt, like other countries which say we don't want nuclear Iran, which go together with terrorism, etc. And this is actually what, for example, Saudi Arabia is looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Let's finish it just by end it by saying that there is a right time to to the West to I don't know to leave the tribunes and go down to the court and play there. If it won't be, I'm saying here, Israel can't tolerate Iranian threat. This Iranian threat, it's intolerable. I'm not using other words because we are responsible. That is why we use the ambiguity policy. And if nobody will do it, we will have to do it. And this is the big catch. The more you avoid comforting Iran, I'm saying it to Washington, you will bring this global war that you didn't want to.
Very true. So you mentioned the Houthis, and last Friday, the Houthis launched a drone attack on Tel Aviv, resulting in 1 casualty and 8 injuries. In response, Israel conducted airstrikes on a key port in Yemen. Could you elaborate on the objectives Israel aims to achieve, and could this be a turning point in the conflict against Iran and its proxies?
Well, Israel, we had to do what we did. Some people in Israel think it was actually should be done much earlier. People in the north, along the border with Lebanon, saying, okay, when they attack us, not the Houthis, but the Hezbollah, you react, but not in such a way. We want Beirut to look like Hodeida, etc. The point is, we waited because we believed that there will be a coalition that will take care of the Houthis, international coalition. Why I'm saying so? Because it's a small problem for Israel, or it's a problem for Israel, but it's a big problem, for example, for Egypt. It's actually close the Suez Canal, etc. Israel is not dependent on what's coming from the Far East that way. So we did it because, first of all, it goes to this center in Israel. There is, by the way, different views in Israel about it, and some people say, well, Tel Aviv and Metula, it's the northern town in Israel, they are the same. I grew up in the periphery, and I know that it's always easier to live in the center of the country than on the borders. But what we did, actually, it's a very good message to one, to Beirut, I mean to Hezbollah and the Lebanese, because as I said, Beirut can be really destroyed. There are so many explosive stuff, etc., and oil, etc., in Beirut, and it's much closer. It's very easy to destroy Beirut. It's also, I think, a message to Iran, which means, okay, you want to deteriorate everything. It's even worse now, and this will bring actually reaction not only in Hodeida but also in Lebanon and Syria, etc. I think it's a kind of a message also to the international kind of international coalition, because let's be frank about it, the West, and especially the United States, UK, France, do help us on the defense against missiles and rockets and unmanned aerial vehicles. and we are thankful for that. But if that will continue, we will have to attack and more. And how would we say it we're in one boat. Pay attention and help us not only on the defense, but also on the offense.
Certainly. Now I would like to relate to tomorrow's event. Bibi Netanyahu will address Congress in Washington. Considering his trip occurs against the backdrop of the upcoming US election, a critical hostage deal, and escalating tension in the northern front, what do you think is the purpose of his visit?
The main purpose is two stuff. One is this is the best arena, the best stage in the world to explain, to announce what we are doing here. Now, most Americans, I don't think that the main interest today is what's happening in Israel and in the Middle East. They have other things to worry about. But Benjamin Netanyahu, Bibi, I was his commander for 3 years. That's why I call him Bibi. He is the first, I think, politician who go to the Congress 4 times. This is his 4th time there. But the hell with the past. Right now, there is it's a wonderful stage to talk, first of all, to everybody and represent the position of Israel. And 2, there are issues between us and the presidency, which is pretty unclear now, but I guess I guess that Biden will stay in the coming months, and I think that he will be softer on Israel, even just because the Democrats, if they want to win, to give a good fight in the election, they have to be more Republican than the Republicans. Now, I'm not interfering, and Netanyahu will not interfere in what's going on in there in Washington and the election. What we are saying usually to the Americans, we won't interfere in your politics, and you don't interfere in our politics. So it's an important visit. He will, I guess, will find finally the right schedule to meet with Biden and with Harris, Kamala Harris, and with Trump, and they will find, I guess, a way to do it, even if Netanyahu will have to enlarge his visit a little bit to Motzai Shabbat, to Saturday, or actually to Sunday. Why is that an important stuff? How long he will be there? Because there is a war here, and there is talks about the hostages and everything, and actually every hour something happened here. By the way, for the Israelis, one has to understand, even if there was an early warning about, let's say, unmanned aerial vehicle entering, and finally, it's a false one. It was a group of birds, for example. For the Israelis, then is an alarm, and you run to the shelters, etc. It's true also about shooting. Most of the shooting that Israelis along the border hearing is Israeli artillery or Israeli airplanes. It's not the Hamas, which is much weaker. but it doesn't help, for example, to the frightened children that they hear what they call booms.
Yeah.
Booming, it's called, they call booming. And when they say, no, no, it's our booming, you say, yes, but it's not a good booming, etc., etc. So what will be in Washington? It's very good. We have to be. It's more important than ever and more sensitive than ever. What is important more than everything? Iran, northern border, northern front, hostages, and supporting to ensure that the United States of America will continue to support us where in the UN, in the national, in the International Council of the UN. Why? Because some people can take what was decided in Hague, which doesn't have any actually teeth, and bring it to the UN, and then if the United States of America won't vote it, and I hope that other countries will also vote it, it will infect every Israeli citizen. In the same time, we have to be very careful not to interfere in the election in the American politics, and I'm pretty sure that Netanyahu will do it in the right place, in the right way. And as I said, also he personally say, I won't interfere in your issues, political issues, so don't interfere in my political issues.
Definitely. Well, we will all be watching. But now, if we could, let's try and draw this discussion to a conclusion. At this juncture, what should Israel do? What would be the optimal approach to this highly complex situation?
Well, first of all, also in Israel, we don't talk about the next decade. I will just mention what will be starring, what will be on the agenda of Israel in the actually the coming decade. First of all, it's going to be a decade of national security. It was always been this way in Israel, but there were changes, etc. And sometimes the economy was important. By the way, Israel, today, Israeli company actually rejected an offer of Google for, what was it, $23 billion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You say it's not good enough. Better. And the Minister of Finance didn't like it because he lose immediately $4 billion as taxes, from taxes. So that will be, we need a stronger and a bigger army, more units, more combatant, especially infantry, because we'll have to stay for a while at least in Gaza, and there is maybe a war. I believe that there will be a war. I hope very much it will be a limited one in Lebanon, and we have to absorb the newcomers to the Israeli army. This is an Israeli issue to do with ultra-Orthodox, but there is also a new serving elite, especially guys and girls from the Zionist religious movements, which make the army much better. There is more different groups in this army, and it's very good because this is exactly the place where they live, where they learn to live together. and we'll have to be less dependent on other countries, especially the United States of America, on ammunition and other issues, other stuff that we produce. We'll have in a kind to rebuild the Gaza envelope and at the same time many settlements along the border in Lebanon. And don't we forget not only the Golanites, but the Baca, all the area in Israel. It's not called the Jordan Valley, it's called the Baca Valley, which is along the Jordan River, and absorbing Aliyah, immigration to Israel. Very important in this stuff. We need it, and at the same time, many people many Jews ask to come to Israel, and finally, education. There are new generations of Israel. We'll have to find the right balance between, let's call it Athens and Sparta, because all those kids, boys and girls, are going to go finally when they are 18 to the military service or national service. And this is actually the way to start and build what I call the cohesion of the Israeli society, was actually based on three issues. One is Judaism, Jewish culture, not only religion, but the Jewish national, the culture, on the language, between Hebrew, and on the patria, the country, Israel. There is a lot of work to do about it, and I think that this is six issues will actually occupy us for at least a decade.
It sure will. And thank you, Uzi, for sharing your insights with us. But I'm very much aware of the time, so I don't think we'll have a lot of it for the questions from the viewers, but we will try and fit in at least one. So one of the questions that was forwarded to me relates to the difficult and tragic consequences of the war against Hamas. Yet, Hezbollah possesses more than 4 times the arsenal of Hamas, with an estimated 140,000 rockets and missiles, not including drones, and has tens of thousands of fighters. So, is Israel capable of defeating Hezbollah, and at what cost?
Israel can do it. By the way, the way that we are going to win the war in the south part, in Gaza, will have a lot of influence about Hezbollah, because they are going to stay there, first of all, without a good excuse why they continue to fight or to launch terrorism. In the same time, United States will have to have its position about it, because so far they say did go to Rafah, and it will once you finish there, you end there, the Hezbollah will stop, etc. And then the Hezbollah will find itself in a position in which, first of all, the United States of America is maybe doing something. I personally don't believe that they will do. Actually, they will go for an attack or so, but they will have their pressure. And in the same time, Iran will say, come on, guys, we already lost our southern outpost. We don't want to lose you in Lebanon and Syria. From Israeli point of view, there is no way to end this conflict, this exchange of fire, there is a saying in Israel, say, what is a ceasefire? It's we seize and they fire. So there is no way to end it with less than what I mentioned before, a death zone, a deployment of a new deployment of the IDF along the border and a little bit over the border if needed, and finally an agreement that the IDF will ensure that it will work. So it is one more war maybe, because if it won't go this way, Israel will have to destroy Hezbollah and Lebanon. Now they are stronger than the Hamas, but they are much, much less powerful than what Israel can do, and Israel will never just say okay for the all the settlers along the Lebanese border. There is nothing to do. We will go to a war. Do we want to do it? As I said, Israel never go to a war unless the public opinion actually support it. The public opinion in Israel fully support the goals of the war, and one of them is to that the people along the borders will never have to suffer this kind of terrorism, and if we'll have to go to a war in Lebanon, we will do it, and we will do it earlier than one can think.
Wow, fascinating. So finally, this might be a bit of a challenging request, but do you have any optimistic views or forecasts to share with us to maybe end on a more positive note?
Well, those notes weren't negative, just the reality, but I am very, listen to me, I'm very optimist. And it's not only because of the joke about the short guys that are always optimists, because from our level, you see only the full half of the cup, etc. First of all, looking at the history, starting, let's start in 45 and ends it in 2048, okay? First of all, Israel is not the only democracy, lawful democracy country in the Middle East, but as everybody in the Middle East will tell you, we are the only country who is stable. There are actually, Churchill said it, so I will use it. There are only 4 real countries in the Middle East, which have a nation have an homeland, natural borders, and of course, culture and, historical tradition and culture, etc. One is Iran, the other is Turkey, Egypt, and Israel. All the other countries actually popped out after the Sykes-Picot Agreement. And you know how Churchill called all those countries? Tribes with a flag. And it's even true today. No one of them is stable. They don't know what will happen in 2 weeks or in 1 year or in 5 years. And Israel is stable. 2, talking to people, and I know a lot of Arabs from Turkey to the Emirates and from, as I mentioned, Iran to the Maghreb, they say you are the only country in the Middle East to actually, first of all, solve the water problem. The water, there is enough water in Israel today. It doesn't mean that we have a lot of water, but we circulate it with this tunnelized water, etc., and it become a economical issue. In Jordan, for example, today, 50% of the water in Jordan is they actually give water to different, in the capitals, to different neighborhoods by hours, 2 hours of water in 24 hours, etc. It is true in everything. And we give water to Jordan. And we give actually 50 million liters of water every day to, you know what, to Gaza. So water. Two, energy. Remember those days that everybody said you are finished because of the special weapon, the secret weapon of the, not secret, but the special weapon of the Arabs, the oil. Israel become independent energetically. As the Arab says, min taht al-bahr, under the sea. You manage to do it, and it's true. And finally, remember one number. In 2048, the population in Israel will be 20 million people. If you wonder how many Jews and how many Arabs or Muslims or other minorities, 15 million Jews, which means we will have more Jews here than the number of Jews all around the world today, including Israel. And because in Israel, you are Jewish by default. You don't become something else. In your place, you have to work very hard to keep it, to nurse it, and to encourage it, etc. In Israel, there are different views about Judaism, but you are Jewish. You don't become something else. And I think that all those, all these three issues, and there are more, make me very optimistic that Israel will be more Jewish, more democratic, and stronger.
Oh, fantastic. That's reassuring. So thank you for that. And thank you so much, Uzi, for sharing your views with us. It wasn't only fascinating, but also inspiring. So I really thank you. And thank you all for joining us to a special episode in our Voices from Israel series. And I wish you all a good evening.